It started with a dead tree, and ended with the HOA declaring war on my front yard. 3 months later, that same dead oak was no longer a tree. It was a 20-foot-tall totem pole carved with the furious face of our HOA president, Karen Hernandez, and a squirrel flipping her off right above it. I didn't plan to become the neighborhood's most infamous homeowner. But when Karen came after my tree, I decided I wasn't just going to fight back, I was going to build a monument to defiance. When I first moved to Willow Creek Estates, I thought I'd found peace. No more paper-thin apartment walls or neighbors blasting techno at 2 a.m. No more fighting for parking or breathing someone's leftover curry in the hallway. Just me, a little ranch house and a yard I could finally call my own. The silence felt like freedom. Until I realized it was the kind of silence that hides behind rules. Perfect lawns, beige houses, sprinklers in sync like a military parade. It all felt too perfect. And right in the middle of my yard stood this massive dead oak tree. The realtor had called it majestic. She'd forgotten to mention it was also very much deceased. I didn't care. I loved it. It had character gnarled, weathered, defiant. It was the only thing in that neighborhood that looked real. I planned to hang a birdhouse on it someday, maybe some wind chimes. But that plan died the day I checked my mailbox. There it was, a cream-colored envelope heavier than my mortgage. On the flap, Willow Creek Estates HOA, embossed with 2 manicured shrubs and a rising sun. Inside, a letter written in the kind of font that already sounds judgmental. It didn't even use my name, just Dear Resident. According to Article 7, Section 4, my property was in violation of landscape harmony standards. In plain English, my dead oak was an aesthetic blight. I laughed out loud. $50 a day in fines if I didn't professionally remove the tree within 14 days. I pinned the letter on my fridge under a pizza slice magnet and said out loud, "That's Tomorrow Me's problem." Tomorrow Me didn't laugh. After multiple ignored voicemails, I showed up at the next HOA meeting in the clubhouse, a beige bunker of stale coffee and passive aggression. There she was, Karen Hernandez. Queen of beige in a tailored cream pantsuit hairsprayed into a helmet of suburban authority. I stood up, explained politely that I was new, that the tree wasn't dangerous, that I just needed a little time to deal with it. Karen tilted her head, smiled like a teacher about to fail a student, and said, "Mr. McMichael, the bylaws aren't suggestions. A dead tree is a symbol of neglect, and neglect spreads. 14 days is standard." The way she said symbol of neglect made it sound like I'd unleashed the plague. I bit my tongue, thanked her, and walked out. Behind me, she was already moving on to the next violation, the miller's shutters apparently the wrong shade of beige. That's when I knew. This wasn't about a tree. It was about control. Fine, I thought, I'll just remove the damn thing. How bad could it be? Turns out very bad. The first tree service wanted $750 cash under the table before sunrise. Less disturbance that way. The second, a corporate outfit with logoed trucks and clipboards, quoted me $5,280 for full extraction and haul away. The third guy, some overenthusiastic college kid named Chad, gave me a TED Talk on tree physics before dropping a $3,500 estimate. I couldn't afford any of it. By the 5th day, a red letter arrived, final notice. The tone wasn't polite anymore. It mentioned liens and further legal action. I sat on my porch, beer in hand, staring at that dead oak. It wasn't hurting anyone. It had survived decades of storms, and now I was supposed to bankrupt myself just to make Karen happy. For the first time, I felt real defeat. Maybe she was right. Maybe I didn't belong here. Maybe this place would break me. That's when fate or the internet threw me a lifeline. I was scrolling through design blogs when I saw an article titled, "The Art of Chainsaw Carving." Photos of bears, eagles, benches all carved from dead trees. My pulse picked up. I grabbed the HOA letter from the fridge and reread the key line, "You are required to have the tree professionally removed." Removed. Not cut down, not hauled away, just removed. What if I removed it from its old identity? What if it wasn't a tree anymore? What if it was art? I opened the HOA's full 300-page covenant PDF and searched for the words art, sculpture, statue. Nothing. No mention. not one, which meant it wasn't forbidden. And if it wasn't forbidden, it was allowed. That night I sketched like a madman. By dawn I had a plan, and the next morning I hired the only man in town crazy enough to pull it off. His name was Chuck. His website looked like it hadn't been updated since dial-up internet. But his gallery, incredible. A 6-foot squirrel, a banjo-playing Sasquatch, a mermaid suspiciously resembling Dolly Parton. This was my guy. When Chuck's truck arrived, it sounded like thunder. He stepped out a mountain of a man with a beard that could host a bird family. He didn't say much. He just circled the tree, knocked on it, grunted once, and nodded. I showed him my drawing, a 20-foot totem pole with Karen's likeness carved at the bottom, pointing a finger scowling eternally. Above her, a raccoon rolling its eyes, a blue jay screaming, and at the top a squirrel flipping the bird beneath an eagle soaring free. Chuck looked at me silent for a long second. Then he said, "She looks like she's got a problem with bird feeders." "You have no idea," I replied. He quoted half the price of the corporate guys. I hired him on the spot. The next morning at 8 a.m., peace in Willow Creek Estates exploded into the roar of a chainsaw named Bertha. Wood chips flew like confetti. I sat in my lawn chair sipping coffee, watching in absolute joy. Curtains twitched up and down the street. My neighbor Dave peeked over the fence, eyes wide. "You're insane," he whispered. "Karen's gonna lose her mind." He was right. Within an hour, Karen's silver Lexus screeched to a stop in front of my house. She stormed up the driveway, her beige suit practically glowing with fury. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked. I smiled, lifted my coffee mug. "Morning, Karen. Beautiful day, huh? This noise is a violation of the nuisance ordinance." "Actually, no," I said, calm as ever. "It's 8:30 a.m. Noise restrictions start at 9 p.m. We're good till then. You were ordered to remove this tree, not vandalize it." I leaned back in my chair. "Exactly. We're removing it. Artistically. You can't rush genius." Chuck, bless him, shut off the saw. At that exact moment, wiped his face, looked at her, nodded slowly, and fired the saw back up again louder than before. Karen's jaw dropped. She spun on her heel and stormed off, tires squealing. An hour later, cops showed up. 2 officers, 1 seasoned, 1 rookie. Karen pounced first, ranting about harassment and effigies. I let her talk, then handed the older cop my HOA letter. "See, here I said they required me to professionally remove the tree. This is Chuck. He's a professional." The officer read it, looked at me, looked at the half-carved totem, and nearly smiled. "So you're getting rid of it by turning it into a giant statue." "Totem pole," I corrected, a commentary on suburban oppression. He nodded. "Sounds about right." Then turned to Karen. "Ma'am, he's within his rights. It's 11 a.m. weekday private property. HOA bylaws aren't criminal law." I thought she'd explode, but she just stood there trembling with rage as they drove away. When she finally left, I raised my mug toward her Lexus. Victory had never tasted so sweet. For 5 days, Chuck carved like a man possessed. Neighbors stopped by to watch. Some frowned, others gave me thumbs up. By the time he finished, the totem stood 20 feet tall, painted in bold colors, Karen's carved face permanently frozen in judgment, while the squirrel above her flipped its middle finger to the world. People loved it. Photos spread online. Someone on Facebook dubbed it the Totem of Petty. Even folks outside the neighborhood drove by to see it. For 1 week, I was a local legend. Then the next letter came certified mail 5 pages long from Hernandez and Cumberland attorneys at law. A formal cease and desist. They accused me of creating an unapproved structure, a visual nuisance, and a targeted effigy intended to harass a board member. They wanted the pole gone in 10 days, or they'd sue me and place a lien on my house. They even backcharged me $3,000 in fines. That one hit hard. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the letter until the words blurred. My stomach knotted. This wasn't funny anymore. They could actually ruin me. I looked out the window at that totem, at Karen's scowling wooden face. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I should cut it down, beg for forgiveness. Then I saw it, the squirrel-tiny paw raised to the sky. And I remembered why I'd done it in the first place. They wanted to bully me into conformity. I wasn't the one out of line, they were. That thought hardened something inside me. I poured another coffee, cracked my knuckles, and opened the HOA covenant again. 200 pages later, I found my nuclear weapon. Bylaw 11, Section 7, Cultural and Religious Expressions. It stated, exemptions from aesthetic regulations may be granted for objects of recognized cultural, artistic, or religious significance. And, most importantly, the committee may not deny an exemption based on the object's theme, origin, or beliefs it represents. Karen had written her own downfall into her holy book. The next morning, I filed paperwork online, $4.99, to officially register the First Church of the Sacred Oak. I listed our beliefs: the spiritual power of creative defiance, reverence for nature, especially stubborn dead trees, and an eternal opposition to beige. Our deity, the Great Splinter. Our sacred object, the 20-foot totem pole in my front yard. Then I called the local news. That afternoon, a camera crew stood on my lawn as I gave the most heartfelt interview of my life. All I wanted was to live in peace, I said solemnly. But when the HOA threatened my sacred tree, I had a revelation. The Great Splinter spoke to me not in a whisper, but through the roar of a chainsaw. The reporter tried not to laugh. I showed her the lawyer's letter, my church certificate, everything. The story aired that night. Local man's religious freedom threatened by HOA. By morning, I was viral. Hundreds of comments, all roasting the HOA. Neighbors started signing a petition to declare the totem a community artwork. 2 days later, a plain white envelope arrived in my mailbox. No certified stamp, no threats. Just one short letter. All fines rescinded. All legal action dropped. And in recognition of community feedback, the totem at 124 Willow Creek Lane was granted a permanent exemption as a work of cultural and artistic significance. It was signed by the HOA vice president. Karen's name wasn't on it. I stood on my porch reading the letter twice, then looked out at the totem. Karen's carved eyes glared up at that defiant squirrel forever frozen in fury. I smiled. They tried to bury me in their rules, but I'd learned how to weaponize them instead. Sometimes, in a world obsessed with order, the only way to restore balance is with a little chaos.